Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we are going to be covering something that is small but mighty. That's right, I'm going to be tackling the DeWALT 12 volt Xtreme circular saw. So let's get into that here on Tinker with Tools. Alright, so before we get started, DeWALT did send this tool over for me to check out. There was no compensation that changed hands, and they don't have any say in what's in the video. The opinions are going to be my own. They just wanted me to have a chance to review it, and I'm grateful to take that opportunity so you guys can know what it is about this saw. So let's get into it. So this is the DeWALT's new 12 volt Xtreme Brushless circular saw. It comes in with a 5 3/8 inch blade, which is considerably smaller than what you're used to on a standard 7 1/4 inch circular saw. But that's where this one shines, because unlike its 7 1/4 competition, this saw actually comes in at roughly half the weight. Earlier today I was weighing my first ever battery powered circular saw, a rigid Gen 5X model, and with a battery on it, that saw came in at just over 10 pounds. This one comes in about 5.5 pounds, and so when you're carrying this around, you're actually getting considerably less fatigued, but you're still able to do a majority of cuts. Now this saw features a 1 3/4 inch depth of cut at 90 degrees and 1 1/4 at 45. It can bevel from 0 to 50 degrees. It comes with an included dust port for attaching it to dust collection or a shop vac. And if you get the kit that I was sent over, you actually do get this with an included 5 amp hour battery. Overall, the build quality and construction is pretty good. Most of the serious parts, if I say that right, are going to be metal. I believe this is a magnesium housing on the blade and then magnesium shoe as well. There is a plastic blade guard, and so a lot of the switches that you interact with are going to be plastic. The vacuum port is plastic as well. It does come with a rafter hook, something that I thought was pretty cool on such a small saw. It also does have onboard storage for the Allen key that you're going to need to be able to change the blade. And then it does come with an included guide rail for when you're doing rip cuts. So you can go all the way up to 7 inches or about 17 centimeters when you're making kind of rip cuts with that. The blade is blade left. Now, if you've never tried a blade left saw, I know a lot of the standard 7 1/4 sidewinder saws are actually blade right, and so that's what I grew up with using. I eventually got a 6.5 inch compact saw that was blade left, and it was a revelation to how nice it was to have much better view of the cut when I was using my right hand with the saw. I'm right hand dominant. And so blade left has just been awesome for me. This is also blade left, and I absolutely love that about it, especially with how nice and compact it is. All right, so let's go ahead and test the tool out. We're gonna run it through a couple of different tests, show how it makes a variety of cuts in a couple of different materials, and then we're gonna come back here for some conclusions and let you know what I think it's perfect for and how it can be best utilized. And we'll kind of give a final verdict. Is this a saw you should own, or is it something you should pass on? All right, so for the sake of this, we are going to be cutting just through a piece of scrap 2x8 that I have. This was once used in a table and the table didn't work out, and so it's just been a piece of scrap wood that's been used for a million different things. So we are going to be go ahead and cutting through this. I have set up kind of the edge guide just so we're not taking off too big of passes at once in terms of width. No need to waste the wood here. And so we are just going to be doing that, and we do have a fully charged 5 amp hour battery. And so we're going to go ahead and do the first cut here. So as you can see, we're not going to be flying through this with reckless abandon, but it by no means stalls when we're doing the cut. This isn't exactly an easy challenge for the saw, but it's something that it can handle. Let's go ahead and do a second one. Okay, so I did push it a little bit harder there, and as you can see, we didn't get a stall. We handled it just fine. For the next couple, we are going to be using just a battery-powered vacuum, and we're going to connect the saw up to it. It just fits right there in the dust port, And so it does kind of give us the ability to do this. Where I see this shining is having a vacuum setup like this. We are going to be able to use this inside someone's house or inside your own house without making a huge mess when making these cuts. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and try a rip cut. All right, so with that cut, you can hear the motor working, and it is going to bog down a little bit, but it still makes the cut. Now let's go ahead and go through a couple of thinner applications and just kind of show you what it's like if you were cutting, you know, slightly thinner material, where I think this thing really shines. All right, so this is actually just a piece of 1x6 that we're gonna use for a comparison here. Let's go ahead and see what we get here. So as you can see, when you're dealing with a slightly thinner board, the 1x material, it offers very little resistance. You wouldn't expect it to, but that's where a saw of this size is really gonna shine. So think if you were to go and actually trim out a window somewhere or do some minor trim work, you could actually go ahead and make your cuts with this and be able to do everything right there on site and actually have really great mobility and not have to worry about the saw, you know, being too heavy or getting in the way, and just all the different things that come with that. All right, and so now we are going to cut through this piece of oak. Going to be a little bit denser, obviously, a little bit more of a challenge. Really, anything in the 3/4 inch variety or anything thinner than that, I think you're gonna have no problem cutting through this. And really, when you get up to the 2x4, you're really not going to have much of an issue as well. You're just going to have to be a little bit more, aware of how fast you're trying to push the material through. All right, so there you have it as far as the testing that we're going to be doing. This is a very good compact saw. It's really well built where it counts. It's got a great little motor on it. The battery behind it is awesome. We did all that cutting and I'm still sitting at 3 bars. So can it handle a smaller project for you? Most certainly it can. Where I think this is going to fall short is if you buy this expecting it to be your primary circular saw and you're going to be doing, you know, framing a basement with it or doing some framing with it. It's really not meant for that, in my opinion. Nor do they necessarily portray it to be that. But it is going to be able to do that job in a pinch, and I think that's really impressive. So if I had any gripes about where it falls short, I don't really know what to say. I do think when you buy into a 5 3/8 inch blade, unlike the 7 1/4 where there is just a multitude of different blade options, you really are going to be limited in the different types of blades that you're going to find, especially if you're just shopping for your local home center. Obviously, the overall number of cuts you're going to be making on a battery is not going to be as great as if you were on an 18 or a 20 volt saw. That is something that is very clear with the size of the saw. But what you're gaining is the fact that this saw weighs half as much as my 7 1/4 circular saw on an 18 volt platform. Where I think this saw shines and where I think it's really going to be awesome is, for example, for me, sometimes I have to go to the hardware store and I don't own a truck. And so if I buy something really big, for example, when I was framing out windows, I wanted to buy the 12-foot boards because 12-foot boards, I was able to get 2 windows out of them instead of if I bought an 8-foot board, I'm only getting 1 window and I'm just wasting that extra little bit of wood. And so if I go to a 12-foot board, I can get 2 and I can cut them at the store in a 6-foot section and then still use them when I get home, make a more precise cut. Taking this saw with me to make those cuts would be awesome. Just grab it, throw it in there. It's going to be able to handle that type of material, no problem. If you need to break down a sheet good before you bring it into the house, just make a single cut or a rough cut. This is going to be able to do it. Clamp down a straight edge and you are going to be able to make that cut no problem, and it's going to be nice and ergonomic as you do it. The other area where I think this would really shine is last summer we actually chose to rip up our carpet in an area of our upstairs and actually put down laminate flooring. And instead of having to haul my miter saw upstairs, I just took a circular saw upstairs. And the whole time I was using that big old rigid circular saw, which did the cuts just fine, but it was 4.5 pounds heavier than what this would have been. And cutting through those laminate strips, I could have gotten a blade that would have handled it just fine. And so that's where I think it really shines, is when you're doing kind of lighter duty type things. This is going to be able to handle the cuts and it's going to be a lot lighter. Overall, I'm impressed with the saw. I just think the only thing I'd caution is if you're going to buy it, know how you're going to use it and just think through if it's going to meet your expectations there. I don't think it will disappoint you as long as you go into it with the right expectations, and it is a wonderful saw. So at the end of the day, I give this a buyer recommendation with a couple of caveats. If you're on DeWALT's 12-volt platform, it is a solid tool. Go ahead and pick it up, especially if you have a couple of the bigger batteries already kicking around. You're going to be able to run this thing just fine. It's going to be great for you. If you're just looking for a lighter duty saw to be able to handle stuff but still want a quality saw, this is a great quality saw, and I think it's going to serve you well for years to come. All right, so now let's talk about price. As I mentioned, I did get the saw for free, but I went ahead and looked over at Lowe's, and you can get the tool-only version of this for $149. If you then want the kit version, I was expecting the kit to be upwards of $250. I hadn't exactly priced it out. I went and looked at it tonight, and you can actually get the kit on Amazon for about $180 to $190, and that matched the pricing I was seeing elsewhere. So at that point, if you're already going to buy the tool only, I would go ahead and get the 5 amp hour battery and the charger included with it, get a bag with it, and it's going to be just about $30 to $40 more. And that is a really great deal. I really think it's a great tool, and it's something that I've been impressed with how much I can do with it given its small size. All right, so thanks for watching this video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions about the saw, hit me up in the comments and I'd be happy to get those answered for you. Or if you have experience with the saw, leave a comment about that as well. I'd like to see what your experience is. And if you want to keep seeing other content from Tinker with Tools, go ahead and make sure you're subscribed to the videos and you hit that bell icon so you can get notified when I put out new videos. So thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been Tinker with Tools.